Hello, and welcome back to another beautiful chapter of The Stars Above. It's a really lovely day today, but I woke up this morning and there was just one problem. The wind was especially rambunctious today. That happens out here at Pyramid Lake. The wind is very rowdy. The wind is very rowdy out here at Pyramid Lake, often. And I could not conduct business. You know, I have lots of business to conduct out here in the desert, and I wasn't able to conduct any business. So I decided to bring you here into my office. This is one of my many offices where I conduct business. An office is traditionally where people conduct business, and so it's only appropriate, you know, that we step into my office to have this little video recording. Before I get into today's chapter, I feel like it's necessary to express a little bit about myself. You know, while this is in fact Icarus's story, I feel like you should know a little bit about me, you know, before we venture forward. You know, I think that's important, because there will be traits that you notice that I have little control over, you know, and I would like it to make clear that I'm trying my very best here, you know. So I feel like it's necessary to just dish a bit. We're just going to do a little dishing about a little bit of my past, you know, before we continue on with Icarus's. Because me and Icarus have we're almost very paralleled. You know, we have a strong amount of similar tendencies. That's probably why I found him out here on a dark and stormy night when nobody else was around for God knows how many miles, you know. And I ate the peyote buttons that he just happened to be harvesting for a year, you know. We're very like-minded people. And the more I read Icarus's story, the more I see that our childhoods were also, you know, semi-paralleled, you know. So anyway, when I was just a wee little lad, my parents were concerned. They were overly concerned because I didn't appear like the other children, you know. They were overly concerned. And so they took me to the doctor. And whatever doctors do, they conducted tests. You know, I'm here to conduct business. They conducted tests with their science equipment or whatever, you know, what have you. They conducted these tests. And they said, this child is a bit impaired. He's a bit impaired. You know, he has these developmental disabilities, disorders, syndromes, what be it. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the jargon. There's a lot of doctor jargon. They labeled me with all this jargon, you know. So I don't know exactly what the correct phrases are. Developmental something, not good, impairment. This child is impaired, you know? And so I was raised with these ideas of impairment. Like there's something wrong with me. And I feel like that very seriously set me back, you know, because I had a terribly bad speech impediment. I was not good socially. I was socially inept. I was socially withdrawn. I was introverted. I wasn't good at making friends or talking good. I couldn't talk good, you know. All these impairments. And the older I got, the more it seemed these impairments just kept me down. They just kept me down in the dumps. Because it was like I was being raised automatically assuming that I had these disabilities, these impairments, this syndrome, developmental jargon. I had all this developmental jargon, and it just kept me down, But the older I got, the more experienced with the world and stuff I got. I started saying, maybe these things don't have to keep me down. Maybe I don't have to be down in the dumps because of all this jargon. Maybe there's something I can do about it. Maybe I can learn to talk good. Maybe if I just learn to talk good, it'll be easier for me. And so I worked on talking good. And then I said, maybe if I just pretend, to be better at being social, I fake it till I make it. What if I just fake it till I make it? And then all of a sudden, being socially inept, being socially introverted, it didn't keep me down anymore. And I just walk up to people. I say, "Hey, buddy, you want to be my pal?" And he said, "Are you talking to me? You want to be my pal?" I said, "Yeah, buddy. I used to be socially inept. I used to be socially impaired. I used to be socially withdrawn, but do you want to be my pal?" And then all of a sudden, I had a pal. And one pal turned into two buddies. And then two buddies turned into three friends. And all of a sudden, I was no longer socially withdrawn. I was no longer socially inept. I had overcome it. It didn't keep me down. I was not down in the dumps because of these impairments. The doctor's jargon. He's impaired. He may not do good in life. But I said no. I said no, I will learn to talk good. I will learn to make friends good. I will learn to be able to have courage. I will not be so introverted. I will not be trapped in a little shell. I want to spread my wings and fly. That's what I felt in my heart. I felt that in my heart. And because I felt that in my heart, I didn't let anyone stand in my way. And that brings me to today's sponsor. Do not let the naysayers stand in your way. Do not let the naysayers stand in your way. When I was just a wee little lad, at the doctor's office, and the doctor said, this wee little lad has developmental jargon. He has developmental jargon. And I was such a wee little lad that I couldn't stand up for myself. I couldn't say, no, you're a naysayer. You're just a naysayer, and I'm not going to let you stand in my way. He was so tall. He was so much taller than I was, just a wee little lad. How could I say I'm not going to let you stand in my way? But as I got older, I got so much taller. I'm so tall. And now when there is a naysayer, I do not let them stand in my way. I do not let them stand in my way. When I come across a naysayer, I say, "Excuse me." And he says, "I'm a naysayer. I'm a naysayer." And I say, "I'm not going to let you stand in my way, naysayer. I am not going to let you stand in my way." And he said, "Well, I'm a naysayer, so I'm going to stand in your way. I'm a naysayer." And two things happen. Two things happen at this point. I ask him politely. I say, "Listen, naysayer, I have become strong. I have become tall. I know myself better. I'm strong. I'm courageous. And I'm not going to let you stand in my way. I would like to ask that you please step aside. I'm being very polite. I'm being very cordial. I would like you to please step aside. Sometimes the naysayer responds positively. He says, I'm a naysayer, but I appreciate you being polite. I appreciate you being cordial. I'm going to step out of your way. That is not always what happens. Sometimes you tend to cross a naysayer and they say, I'm a naysayer. And I say, listen, naysayer, I do not let people stand in my way. And first I go about the polite route. And when they say, I'm a naysayer and I don't care if you're polite, I'm a naysayer and I'm standing in your way, I go straight for the Adam's apple. Straight for the Adam's apple. I'm too strong, I'm too tall, I am too brave, I'm too courageous. I go straight for the Adam's apple. Oftentimes I have my cane. I'll go straight for the kneecap. Straight for the kneecap first. If they still don't go down, straight to the Adam's apple. I've never had to do it, but I know that if you uppercut the bridge of someone's nose, the bridge of their nose shoots into their brain and they will die. I've never had to do it, but I've seen it happen in Con Air. Nicolas Cage uppercuts the bridge of someone's nose and it shoots into their brain. That person was a naysayer. That person was trying to hurt Nicolas Cage's girlfriend or something. I forget exactly what happened, but he was a naysayer. Nicolas Cage said, excuse me, stop what you're doing. The bad guy said, I'm a naysayer. I'm a naysayer. I'm not going to do what you say. And Nicolas Cage uppercutted the bridge of his nose, shot the bridge of his nose into his brain. Dead. I haven't done that. Kneecap, Adam's apple. But that's only after trying your hardest to be polite. The point I'm trying to make is, don't let naysayers stand in your way. Also, don't let anything stand in your way. Don't let developmental jargon stand in your way. Don't let an impairment stand in your way. Don't let developmental jargon stand in your way. All of that stuff standing in your way, that's just naysayers. Naysayers have so many different forms. They take on many walks of life. You know, I overcame my speech impediment. I overcame my social disorders. I was not able to make much sense of the more obvious ways of the world. I couldn't make much sense of the obvious ways of the world. And I'm still working on that. But you know what? Maybe I don't want to make sense of the more obvious ways of the world. Because a lot of the more obvious ways of the world, look at the world. Look at the world. There's so much bad stuff going on. People are cruel. People don't have compassion. People lack empathy. People have forgotten that they have a heart. A lot of people have forgotten that they have a heart. It may keep them breathing. It may keep beating. It keeps their cardiovascular stuff, the jargon of the body. It keeps their body going. But that's all that it's doing. It's like a bad engine. It's like an engine that has not been tended to. It doesn't even get oil changes. Their heart is only used for barely making their mechanical body move. Everything else that a heart is supposed to have, they have forsaken it. Because they are all about the more obvious ways of the world. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I just want to move forward. I want to move forward. I want to accomplish things. And so many times when you're trying to move forward, you're trying to overcome your whatever, your fears, your impairments, your jargon. Overcome yourself. A naysayer will always be standing in your way. And here's the thing. As many naysayers will try to stand in your way, the biggest naysayer the biggest, tallest, strongest, most courageous, bravest naysayer will always be yourself. It will always be yourself. It will be in the back of your mind. And it will say, you can't do that. I'm a naysayer. I'm a naysayer. I'm not going to let you press forward. I'm not going to let you overcome. You're not going to overcome anything. I'm a naysayer. You're a failure. You suck. You don't talk good. You don't know how to make buddies and pals. You won't accomplish anything. The biggest naysayer that you will ever come across is yourself. And you must overcome that naysayer. Overcome that naysayer, and the rest of the naysayers in the world will literally fall like dominoes. You will flick one with your strong, brave, courageous index finger, and they will all fall. All of them. They will tumble. And they will not get back up. They will not even know what to do. They said, oh my God, that guy's finger is so strong, he just flicked me and we're all down. And now they're down in the dumps. Now they're down in the dumps. But you know what? You've overcome the biggest naysayer of all. So how about this? How about this? Reach your hand out to that first naysayer. Pull him back up on his feet. Pull him back up on his feet and see what happens. It may just change his whole fucking world. Because he's tried so hard to be a naysayer. He's tried so hard to keep everyone down. But when he fell and he toppled hundreds of trillions of other naysayers, the person he tried to bring down, the person he tried to bring down, who you flicked him over and toppled everything, that same person reached their hand out, pulled him back up on his feet. Try it out. See what happens. Because that man, that gal, that guy, that gal, whatever they were, their entire existence is going to shift. It's just going to shift. And then all of a sudden, he's going to want to pull up the guy behind him. And then the process is going to perpetuate. Everyone's going to pull each other up. You know? It's going to be the most remarkable thing in the world. Those hundreds of trillions of bajillions of naysayers, perhaps they will become better people. Perhaps they will not just be shitty engines running on little oil. Perhaps their heart will have remembered what it's like to be a heart. That's today's sponsor. I feel like I could just keep going and going. But that's the thing. They gave me this developmental disorder. And as I grew, I overcame it. I overcame the disorder. And you know what I did? I decided to change it. So whatever developmental disorder they gave me, at some point I decided to change it. I renamed it. Do you want to know what I renamed it? I renamed it. What did I rename it? Jimbo Jambo? Jimble Jamble Jambalaya. I do not have a traditional disorder given to me by the doctors. I overcame that. What I have now is Jimble Jamble Jambalaya brain. I have Jimble Jamble Jambalaya brain. So you will see as we progress. Sometimes I do not know how to talk right. Sometimes I fumble about my words. That is because I have Jimble Jamble Jambalaya brain. It is not because I'm impaired. Things just sometimes I have a hard time making sense of stuff. And my brain is going so fast that things just come out of my mouth. I will make up words. I will literally make words up. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a car literally pulling right behind the camera right now. They have lots of dogs in a cage in the back of their truck. I don't know what they're doing. I think they might be going fishing. It doesn't matter. I have Jimble Jamble Jambalaya brain. That's all that matters. But I've overcome everything else. Try, if you do have a disorder, try it. When you overcome it, just make up a new one. Make up a new one that better suits your sense of self. Make it something fun, you know? I guarantee you will feel so much better than sticking with the developmental jargon that you were given. Like I said, I could just keep going and going, but it's neither here nor there. Let's just read. I think we are on chapter 2. Chapter 2, the biggest little city in the world. Having sold my vehicle to afford moving, quite a bit of aimless exploring was done on 4th Street alongside the eccentric locals. I have a gimp knee which tends to give out, and in that area, the more one walks around looking high on LSD, the better you're perceived. I have dark bags under my eyes and tattoos that speak of sad stories. My body type would imply use of hard drugs, but it's just a fad look. Heroin chic never went out of style. As Nick Cave would say, I am tall and I am thin, of an enviable height, and I've been known to be quite handsome in a certain angle and a certain light. I often dress like a Jackson Pollock, senseless garb thrown against a tattered canvas. At times looking like a harlequin had sex with a desperado in Tortuga, sailed west to the promised land and birthed a ghost train conductor draped in bells. Or a pariah beatnik snapping his fingers down alleys to doo-wop, swinging the chain to a pocket watch. Or a masked bandit who works as a stunt double in spaghetti westerns by day and robs the graves of 19th century women still wearing their jewels by night. Observing the deranged inhabitants of our barrio was fascinating, being quick to pick up on their mannerisms while guessing what highs they were riding. Within my clinical trials, the data deduced such things as, the man gnawing at his own arm is likely on bath salts. The woman defecating in the street while flailing feces with her toes like an orangutan must have been huffing spray paint, for she's holding a brown paper bag, and spray paint. The fella covered in marinara sauce doing Tai Chi on top of the garbage bin must smoke too much crank. And the person loitering by the motel asking each passerby, "Looking for a good time, darling?" Dressed in platform boots, fishnet stockings and tight-fitting brassiere, with a body uneasily distinguished from male or female, was subjected to a bad dose of parenting, or lack thereof. My favorite run-in occurred on a late-night walk, when an out-of-place old-timer waved me down with his cane. He was in a plaid suit, with a fedora tilted over his shriveled potato head, wearing the kind of smile only an elderly who spends their days playing bridge could deliver. He spoke in a sly manner. "Do you play around?" he asked, winking. "Excuse me?" I replied. "I'll give you a blowjob." "You know what, man? I'm good, thanks." "But I'll do anything, though." "Really? I insist. I'm good." His devilish smile grew with radiant dentures, aching to be popped out for a good time. I started laughing and walked away, only getting a few yards before he yelled in a last-ditch effort with sincerity, "I swallow!" He'd been too overzealous in his approach. A sweetheart, surely, but I like a good challenge. He was offering up all the reward with no sense of the chase. Swell lads want to feel such advances have been earned. Not everyone tended to cross were Martians from a demented planet, or gutter goons looking to hook up and get down with a fix. I shared in on great conversation with many types of people, and almost all those in their 20s would present the same question. "Of all places, why choose Reno?" they'd ask. "Look here," I'd reply, putting on a front of false confidence. "I've lived in many places. The soft sand beaches of the Caribbean, the trash-filled suburbs of Southern California, and amongst the lush forests of Oregon. I've lodged in log cabins and panned for gold in the creeks of Idaho. I've bunked in a trailer at the foot of the Rockies, trimming swag to push pennies. I've resided amongst the Sioux Nation in North Dakota's rolling hills, In my very own teepee, having fought the fire while watching it burn to the ground, butt naked in an Arctic blizzard. I've had extended stays in motels, crashed in churches, a dozen tents, on the road and under the stars. I've felt spiritually rich, and I've lived poor as a vagabond. That's all great, but I feel like you just went on a pretentious rant of your exuberant lifestyle choices and haven't really answered my question. Apologies. Allow me to clarify. I've had exciting experiences in wonderful places. I've locked lips with spirited women and held conversation with folk I couldn't hope to understand. I've traveled by foot, train, plane, boat, and bus. I've blown dodge with road tramps, lived the culture, and witnessed the soft underbelly ruled by the allure of freedom and transient lifestyle of disillusioned hippies who romanticize their societal woes. Woe is me! Woe is me! I've driven coast to coast, there and back again, seen the sun rise in the east, caught it set in the west, and everything in between. In all its glory, I've seen this remarkable country from one end to the next, Chief, and no other place has held a candle to the likes of these skies, above these electric lights, here in Reno, the only place felt to have truly belonged. Woe is you? Woe is me. You're a dick. I often found that the kids with roots in Reno want out, in search of greener pastures. But this city is a best-kept secret, and the older folk know this. At first glance, it may seem nothing more than a pass-through destination for those looking to score on a cheap bet, where broken bottles lay around overflowing ashtrays with stale butts, filling the air with an aroma of tragic despair and shattered dreams. However, this is only visible on the surface, felt as a sad, tainted shade of a bejeweled jungle's chaotic beauty and maniacal shenanigans. Be that as it may, lights flicker and glass glisten like rubies across towering casinos, illuminating a radiant glow of pink and gold over the biggest little city in the world. Beneath the surface lies Reno's good-hearted nature and sense of community. Whether rich, poor, or strung out in the gutter, people here treat their neighbor how they want to be treated. There are bad apples, of course, but amongst the weeds lay more flowers than not. It's a no-nonsense place, and not meant in a silly way. While freaks are a dime a dozen on these streets, what you see is what you get. Straight shooters of modest intention. You can be a paper-pushing pansy whose wit's about them by day, and become the primal beast you feel to be by night. There are hardly differences to be had here. It's a homestead of character, pride, respect, and integrity. A blue-collar town of earnest will, with belief in an old American dream that still exists, where life's just a little bit slower, and a whole lot simpler. Oh! I'm in my office, Wind, conducting business. Please. Reno is the last desert highland a cowboy can live and die by the code of the West before crossing into the oversensitive streets of Frisco. A gentleman's agreement, never written into bylaws, but respected nonetheless. Look out for your own. Take the measure of a man for what he is today. Never order anything weaker than whiskey. Never pass someone without greeting them. Don't look back. It implies distrust. Do not practice ingratitude. Be courageous. Cowards aren't tolerated in any outfit worth its salt. Be hospitable to strangers. Be there for those in need. Give your enemy a fighting chance. Save your breath for breathing. Help those in desperation, whether stranger or foe. Respect the land and the environment. Honesty is absolute. One's word is their bond. Amongst others, of course. The first bar visited was a hole-in-the-wall joint with a flickering neon bottle cobwebbed to the roof. But within a town that still has this sense for outlaws, watering holes deserve to hold their title of saloon. Reno's being simply up to date. Long gone are the old and rustic, bat-wing swaying shutters, replaced by heavy wooden doors that drown out the light of day, helping one to forget when and why they're there. Sayonara to the melodic honky-tonkin' tack pianos, with gents playing ragtime pieces for the country gals in seductive corsets, who go by the names of Clementine or Josephine. You'll still find gunslingers. Nevada's an open-carry state. They just aren't strapped with a Ruger single six, leaning over a poker table with aces up their sleeves. They're at the bar playing digital 5-card stud. These establishments are old, have rusty nails, paint-peeling walls, and lonely patrons whose pain runs fine as red wine. Reno has saloons, and you can stumble upon them on either side of a dark alley rancid with the stench of hopelessness. I'm a table for one, drinks for two kind of loner, having taken a seat at the furthest end of the long wrapping counter. "What'll it be, young man?" asked the barmaid. She was an older gal, pushing 60 on a good day, 70 on a bad. "Whatever special you got," I said. "One PB&J coming up." I was famished and not inclined to assume such a combo wouldn't include a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but she'd only brought a bottle of Pabst Blue Ribbon and a shot of Jameson. These days I'd consider myself a sophisticated man with good taste for fine scotch, but I wasn't always a whiskey drinker. When young and dumb, I was a vodka man, a highness spirit which aches to fight others when consumed in large quantities. Whiskey is a reflective spirit. It also wants to fight, but only with oneself in those deep dark parts kept buried away, haunting us most. Reno's a whiskey town, and I arrived from a vodka city. You can tell a lot about a place by listening to the characters occupying it. Incoherent and delusional babble was being yelled every which way. An ill-mannered flamboyant would shout while shooting billiards, "The only way we'll ever achieve peace is if we learn to respect each other's opinions, unless in favor of carrot cake. Fuck carrot cake." While no shame in his game, over my travels I've learned to get a second opinion when choosing to trust a man wearing a dress who seems to have an obvious dependency for psychoactive substances. Besides, those who preach loudest tend to have the guiltiest conscience. Another man a few tables over would raise a pint to his buddy. "Here's to our wives and our girlfriends. Let's hope they never meet. If they should, let's pray for a ménage à trois." He didn't appear a fellow who'd use fancy French words, but this place was full of surprises. "Hear, hear," his friend hollered back. "Sounds good to me, but all I'm looking for is a girl to ruin my life for one night in the biggest little city." A blue-collar still in his work uniform throwing darts would go on about the business of burros. "Did you know the Bureau of Land Management sells donkeys? Why, Yosemite Sam up in Virginia City got Bernadine when she was just 6 weeks old for 125 smackers. She'd give birth on the 4th of July to her donkey son, Independence." Funny enough, I'd meet that old-timer Yosemite Sam months later while feeding Bernadine. I was on an empty stomach, and after a couple more rounds of the special without a sandwich, a formidable drunk was built. "Do you have anything to eat which isn't lathered in butter or cheese?" I called out to the barmaid, smirking. I was vegan at the time, presumably for ethical reasons, and this didn't seem the kind of place which accommodated strict diets. A few bar stools up, a native in a beaded denim jacket would laugh, chirping, "Nothing like that here, friend. We got California condor, but it tastes like chicken." Another PB&J would make do. I have a nasty habit of flirting with senior citizens after prolonged inebriation. It's an innocent act. There's a sensuality to it favored more than what precedes the action itself. I got to talking with the barmaid. Her name was Betty. She was a dirty blonde wearing cowgirl boots, Daisy Dukes, and an AC/DC crop top. I was playing digital poker at my school. That would be interesting if I was playing it at my school. I was playing digital poker at my stool, gambling $1 at a time while making cent bets for cheap thrills. Once down to a penny, I'd cash out. This made Betty walk each end of the bar with a single copper cent in hand. After a few goes at her slapping down one coin, she'd tell me, "You know, I'm starting to think you're doing this on purpose just to see me walk away. One more time and I may start loving you." "Would that be so bad, Betty?" I asked. "You're a delight whether coming or going." That's a mighty sentiment coming from a kid sipping on a beer with 4 straws linked together, cashing out pennies. "Would you have me any other way?" "Course not." "What were you into before making stiff cocktails?" "Well, I was married when I was younger, became a widow and got acquitted for murder, dodging the clink. Then I worked out at the Bunny Ranch brothel east of Carson City." "Quite the life for a gal such as yourself." "You see these legs, hun? God don't give people things he don't want them to use." "You still using them?" I winked. "Honey, I may be twice your age, but I'm thrice the ride. Just know when those church bells ring, I'm headed to sermon." By that point, it was understood that if only buying her a warm milk, she'd be coming home with me. Alas, I quit well ahead. As stated, the act of flirting is fancied more than the actions to follow. Besides, I wasn't keen on becoming the victim to her next acquitted murder case. "This place is outstanding," I thought to myself, never having enjoyed the likes of such senseless and honest company. Not one of those drunks would have tried to piss down my back and tell me it's raining. I could have blindly walked before any of those earnest individuals simply to say, "I dig the cut of your jib," and they'd have known what I meant, not looked to me as if I just jibber-jabbered offensive dialect. No, that's a vodka city trait. Nobody in that fine establishment would have declared, "You just need to pull yourself up from your bootstraps." These weren't the kinds of folk to say, "You need to get over it." For those types of people either never got over it themselves or never went through it to begin with. Weathered souls don't carry condescending tones. No one in that saloon was with ill intent or patronizing antics. They hadn't sought sympathy, nor passed judgment. Whether having been through the ringer, down and out, or just looking for kicks, these were the good men and women of a humbling Reno, with simple aspirations for strong drink and a proper drunk. Turning to the bottle as a habitual practice of self-avoidance brought great insight on what it felt like to be one of 4th Street's curbside inhabitants. The feeling of trudging through ankle-high waste comprised of brown paper bags and broken bottles, slicing at the Achilles. Up to your gut in sorrow, like wading through quicksand poorly mixed with bottom-shelf liquor. Up to your chest in despair. Only your arms are free as you desperately reach for another bottle. Once drinking yourself into the bottomless pits of depression, the only way out seems to be drinking yourself further in with a bent idea of resurfacing. Up to your neck in your own bullshit, the only visible sight for miles being a sloshy terrain of excrement splashing dangerously close to your frothing mouth. All of this happens slowly, tortuously, deviously, to the point you're oblivious to its plan of consuming you entirely. Now your head is well under, buried by your inability to cope and lack of resolve. Expression is lost as your heart sinks at the sight of no face within a mirror, for that unbearable anguish has become the tomb sealed shut at your own hand. Woe is you, woe is me. I come from a very long line of addicts with abusive tendencies towards any and all substances. Looking for answers at the bottom of a glass is a fool's errand. My arrogance led to ruin, but my humility has bloomed into some offbeat wisdom. Acts of self-destruction have the potential to bring upon great transformation and divine understanding, even in an old saloon. I drank myself under the table, having hit the John before stumbling back home. My vision was cockeyed, yet in some bent nature I could make out what was scratched into the rotting wall above the urinal, clear as day. There's nothing for you here. I took an extreme offense to it, having belched a considerable amount of whiskey-infused bile before swallowing it back. It felt as if some menacing swine had etched it deep into my warped state of awareness with his little pissant Swiss Army knife, just to get my knickers in a knot. Horseshit, I thought. This is exactly where I need to be, while being right on time to find out why. I stopped at the train tracks next to the stone mill before returning home. It had become a comforting place to sit through the lonesome nights atop giant cement blocks with a bottle in my hand. I'd watch as sad cats roamed beneath the bridge carrying empty freight cars filled with jumpers following the hobo code east through Sparks, past Paiute territory, and into the vast desert beyond. Too sane to stay, and just mad enough to dance along the continental railways into what most free folk would call the unknown. At times I'd wish to follow suit, having sought to be taken somewhere liberated from care with nothing but a knapsack. But a purpose had brought me there, and I was hell-bent on discovering what kept me. Besides, I wasn't made for the great plains of the East. I'd been born for the high deserts of the West. Within a fog, a part of me felt ready to surrender. But if hoping to understand, I needed the will to both accept and plunge headfirst to depths never dove. In teetering above a beautiful death or harrowing life, I fell into a nightmare, while having woken to a dream. It would appear as if Icarus is his own naysayer, falling to the bottle. He's hopeless right now. He's hopeless. But he will find a way to press forward. He must find a way to overcome. He must find a way to challenge the naysayer in himself. Nobody around him is being a naysayer. He is the naysayer. He is falling to the bottle. I don't need to get back into how to defeat naysayers because I already went over that. Shout out to today's sponsor, do not let naysayers stand in your way. I'm gonna go make lunch. I have pickles and I have licorice, and I'm gonna eat them, and nobody is gonna tell me not to. Nobody will stand into the way of my eating licorice and pickles. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been wonderful to have you. Come on back next time for another chapter of The Stars Above.